pretty good job of narrating your bid there, Michael.
Oh, well, thank you. I've got to present that this week to that group from Watershed Watch. But as I was just speaking with Steve a little while ago, and I'm particularly moved. Like right as I'm getting this thing ready to, talk about what happened to the Muddy Fork as I knew it. Mm-hmm. The place I'm talking about, Steve, is what's now Trinity Hills. And when I was growing up, as I indicated in the video, it looked kind of like the scene I see behind you: open field, flowers, tall grasses, creek running through. It was just a wonderful place. And they came through with bulldozers and screwed that up. I mean, I have watched through my life as they've taken one place after another. They built, the Target store on old farmland. They built Woodlawn Shopping Center on what used to be a horse farm or horse track. And they've proceeded to take all of the stuff. And I just learned, Dustin, I sent you a note about this as well. There's now a proposal for a 300-unit apartment complex on the corner of Ridgeway and Westport Road.
Right, 300?
300, actually 294. So, a little better, I guess. 294 units.
Right at that intersection?
Right there at Westport Road, where Westport Road crosses the track.
Crosses the tracks.
There's a big field in back of the Plant Kingdom nursery. It's about 6 acres. And it's been there all my life. It used to be part of the Ridgeway property. Ridgeway is the big antebellum house down at the end of the lane. But they now have a proposal to put in this, and they want to build a roundabout right at the railroad tracks too. So I don't know. I have no idea what that's going to look like. They have to have a zoning change in order to do this. It has to be zoned for multifamily units. But at any rate, that kind of, Steve, as I was indicating, that kind of leads me into the same idea that we've been discussing, which is values. And Paul, the preponderance of money and capitalists here, that as much as I may have a dream of doing something that would be beneficial to the community, that people would actually enjoy, having perhaps an open spot with a place to walk your dog, or a place to just sit and away from home and then enjoy a day, instead of that, because I don't have a couple of $1 million and $50 million, whatever the place is going to cost them. I have to watch somebody who does have that money come in and destroy the absolute last piece of property in St. Matthews. It is the last piece of undeveloped land in St. Matthews. There is nothing else. Nothing remains. And it started I included this in this film, but one of the things that I think is important in these discussions is the vocabulary that we use. And I find it interesting. In the article describing this project, they described it as one of the rare pieces of undeveloped land. And, we've gotten used to using that term undeveloped. And when you start thinking about it, it's a double negative, undeveloped. So developed is a negative to begin with. When something's enveloped, it's unified, it's whole. It's like it's found a homeostasis. It's what it should be. When you develop, you unravel it, you break it apart, you smash it, you dismember it. And so undeveloped is a good thing. If you consider development to be a bad thing, as I do, undeveloped is a wonderful, wonderful state to be. It's like saying it's unharmed, it's unviolated, however you want to describe it. So anyway, that's what's on my mind these days. And Marcia gets kind of irritated with me because I get so upset about these things because I'm powerless. I don't have any I don't have much to do. And Dustin, you may remember, tried to go to bat for a piece of property you used to play in as a child, what Dustin and his siblings used to call the fields, which was another lot that was not far from us, within walking distance of our house, where they had a tree house and they had, a place to hang for kids to hang out without adults.
The whole neighborhood used it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an unofficial park. Yeah.
Yeah. But when the proposal came through to build condominiums there, we went over to the city. The city could have bought the property for about $250,000 and kept it from being developed. But not only did they not do that, but they thought trying to hold on to a green space was a really stupid idea. They wanted to build more buildings. I mean, honestly, that's what drives me nuts, is if they said, well, we hate to do it, but we need the tax revenue. I might reluctantly say, well, okay, but they don't need the tax revenue and they want to see it fucked up. They really want it screwed up. So their values are different. And I guess that's what I would like to explore today is, do you encounter that? How do you deal with people whose values, and by that, I don't mean, your religious philosophy. I mean, the things that hurt you or inspire you, the things that you think are really important, and someone doesn't share those values. What do you do?
Yeah. How do we monetize non-monetary things? Can I have a Bitcoin system for like community social wealth?
Yeah. No.
Unfortunately, we don't do that. That's, your point being well taken, that this should be something you consider, but it's only something that happens when people get old enough to understand what has been lost. When you're 25 years old or 30 years old and you're trying to make some money and have, get enough money to buy yourself a house, et cetera, et cetera. You don't think about those things because you haven't encountered them and you don't have anybody around you who has, which is where you come in, Michael. That your position is an important one, because at least you're up there saying, hey, this is what it was like. Okay, this is what we lost. This is what we're going to lose again. And even though you think this is really, a fabulous place to get more money from the taxes, it's not really. Because I know that creek, I'm kind of in the floodplain for that creek where I am up on rolling fields. And where, frankly, it floods. We get a lot of water comes down Country Lane. That's all. It doesn't get my house because I'm sitting literally on top of the hill.
Yeah.
But I can go down. I've gone down there before they finished the last house down at the bottom of the creek. I've gone down there and wandered through that. You can get over to Mockingbird Valley that way. So, and that's, all of those subdivisions are all connected to that same set of creeks.
Yeah. Dustin, Paul is referring to something. I just sent you a link to a video that I made for presentation this week to Watershed Watch of Kentucky.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah.
And Paul is referring to the video, and on that I'm talking about the area that is now Trinity Hills and the creek that runs through that joins up and becomes the Muddy Fork that then runs down to through Indian Hills down along I-71. And Muddy Fork gets ignored a lot. It's run underground in places. It's really nothing more than a ditch, and it's not anything inspirational, but it's my watershed, so I'm working with Watershed Watch, supposed to be taking care of my watershed. That's what it is. It might look like a piece of crap to some people, but it is what it is. It's where the water flows. And the irony about the other project, the apartment complex, is that field up there has no runoff right now. Now, we had a huge rainstorm this past week, and I don't know, we had 4 inches of rain maybe, and there's no water that runs off that field. It's all absorbed into that field. And what happens in the aquifer there is that water goes down and it runs across the ridge. Ridgeway Avenue runs straight across the ridge, and the water falls off either side of it. So that field is on the east side of the ridge, and that is the water that feeds the spring that creates the branch of the Muddy Fork. And so when they build this complex, and I have no doubt they'll probably do it, I'll lose my battle here, but when they do it, they're going to have runoff. Now, the runoff is probably not going to go down that side. They're going to send the runoff to the west side of Ridgeway, which is going to make it part of the problem that they have in Trinity Hills with water flow now. So they're not only going to screw up the land, but they're going to mess up the water flow as well. So anyway, I don't want to just focus on that. I'd like to elevate the discussion a little bit to talk
Well,
about.
One minor comment, in somewhat relative to this, is that what the city of Rolling Fields did was that there was a house that sat on the corner, Country Lane in Rollington, and it wasn't selling, and I think frankly because some black people had occupied the house, they rented it out to some people of color, and so they nobody buy it. And finally they decided what they would do would be to buy it and tear it down and build a park, which they did. Now there's a park. It's kind of just a tiny little, well, it's a good size for a house, but for a park, it's very small. And the people bring their kids out there, and they play in the grass a little bit. And I just think, could have been better. They could have not done that. And I don't know. We'll see. I guess they get more taxes off of that. No, they don't care. They wanted to make this for their kids.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But I'm okay. If you got enough money, which people do, you can do that.
Same thing happened in a place just off Lexington Road where there was to be a development, but someone came in, deep pocket guy came in and bought the property and turned it over to the Olmsted Conservancy. And so there's precedence for this. And I mentioned not far from where Steve lives is a place on the corner of Rudy Lane and 42 that had a proposal for a development. And I'm not sure who paid for that, Steve. You might know.
Windy Hills, the city of Windy Hills.
City of Windy Hills.
Bought the lots. It was subdivided for private residences. And I think there was a last one, there was a big debate, but basically the city of Windy Hills bought it to be parkland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dustin, I saw you put up a notice there about trying to organize in the community, and I will do that. And I already have plans to go to a meeting on Tuesday, and there's going to be a meeting for the zoning folks later.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
I'd like to do that, but
And you have to be pretty aggressive too, and you have to use all avenues, not just go to meetings. It's like, find groups to shame them. Group shaming works. Believe me, I'm in nonprofit work. Of figuring out all the kind of data of like, here's what it's actually going to cost. Here's how projects like this actually screwed up other communities. And you go to the other homeowners like, this is going to lower your property value or whatever thing can scare them. And you do it in good nature, but you're aggressive about it. You don't just trust people to do the right thing. You lay out their interests and you remind them what their greater interest is, and you got to be aggressive. So like in one person, it's hard to do that. With a group of people who are aggressive, it works. It does work. Like once people start hitting, like rumors move real estate.
Yeah.
Well, I've fought this battle before and I've lost, and it's a little hard to gather the energy to try to fight it.
You fake it till you make it. You're like, I'm just, and then people will glom onto you, even if you just fake it till you make it. Then you have a group, and then you're fine. It's that first step is the hardest. First step is the hardest.
So I may end up either sitting in front of the bulldozer or emulating myself in the middle of the field. That might be something.
Bessie, don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that, this, I was listening to newscasts this morning and they were talking about the division, and we seem to be focused on the divide in our country. And it's almost as though people want to choose sides. You want to be on, once you've decided you're on one side or the other, you go along with the group no matter what they say. So what you're saying, Dustin, about getting the group together, that's true. But you got to remember there's another group on the other side that's already together. And that's that's all the bankers and the people with money.
Yeah.
So they're together.
But the majority hates them though. Well, want to be them, but they do hate them. So you just, we're humans. We are not special, like, let's go to our roots.
But what I understand, the recent Super Bowl, that there weren't too many people who were rooting for both teams. You pick your team.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There was the silent majority that didn't watch.
Well, I think it's more likely they were rooting against both teams. They're rooting against them is something.
Right.
Yeah, your George Carlin clip is very apropos of that,
Yeah, well, I really do think that's kind of a like listening to a modern day prophet, because he's hitting on this notion that you either in this case you look at sport in one of two ways. It's either go kill the opposition, or it's try to get safe at home, try to do something positive, hit the ball and run faster and so forth. You don't, except for Pete Rose, people don't try to kill people in baseball. They Pete being the big exception, but yeah.
I saw the results of a survey on CNN this week, which related back to what we're talking about, the George Carlin and so on, about the popularity of different sports. And baseball has declined from, I think in the 1960s, about people's favorite sport was about 34%. It's down to like 11% now. And soccer is more popular than baseball.
Baseball's lost out. It used to be people took off work to watch the World Series, and kids carried, I remember having a transistor radio trying to listen to the game in school. Yeah. Now, the last time there was a World Series, Paul, I think I pointed this out. There was a World Series game one night when we had a men's group. They didn't put it on, we were in a bar. They didn't even put it on the bar TV. I said, well, the World Series. They said, what? It's like, so
who watches?
Dustin, your generation probably didn't have that struggle. I would venture to say you couldn't name one of the teams that was in the World Series this year.
I know it's baseball. I know baseball. Baseball works better on radio than anything else, and that might be a part of it.
Yeah.
Now, why soccer? I don't get it. I mean, I like soccer, but I don't get why it's so popular. Like, I guess it's good to drink at.
I think soccer would be a great game to play, but it's very boring to watch from that point of view.
Yeah, as a parent, it was great. Let's take them out for both practices and games and wear them out so they don't have so much energy.
Yeah. You can always get on a soccer team.
Yeah, so kids growing up on and playing soccer, they know a little bit about it. How they're watching it.
Yeah.
My theory. I was a soccer coach, having never played soccer in my life. Because you're a dad and you show up at the games, they hook you in.
Yeah.
You're in. Come on. No, I haven't yet figured it out. I mean, I understand that, how the scoring works, but I don't quite understand all of the secondary stuff that goes on and people talking about all, they're doing this guy's over here and that guy's over there, and on and on and on. And I'm like, because the pro guys are damn serious.
Oh yeah. Just watch the Spanish language version.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
exciting. It is
Yeah.
very exciting.
Yeah. Values, Michael, values. What are we going to do?
Values,
About values?
Bring up values. I think there is something more than gross domestic product that should be measured as the welfare of a country. Okay, yeah, economics is important. We've been talking about economics a bit, but there is something about being able to get to nature. There's healthcare, education opportunities. There's cultural things, the arts, that part of culture that make a difference in how well people are satisfied with their lives.
Yeah. I put in a chart, and I don't know if development. I don't know if this is if you guys are into it, and maybe we can do this another time, is kind of like fill out the chart. This was in taking one particular concept, like development in general. And when I say they, I'm less thinking the actual developers. I know, but you could do that too, but more of the other political side, the general populace who would support a development or not necessarily the developers who we know what they want money. But is there a way to kind of, there's these, we had talked before about the 5 moral pathways, I think, and like that's how to break out a moral judgment. But then I like doing a matrix of this, of really like, what are the good and bad ways I think they think of it? What are the good and bad ways I think of it? How do I think they think of it? Like you just changing back and forth, and you good and bad, my point of view, their point of view, and you run the gamut. And the end goal, at least for me, is to find kind of commonalities, find a way to reframe my values in their language and vice versa. Because a lot of the people who are conservative, the biggest thing, especially now, is all of us just want to be listened to. And if I keep feeling you're calling me an asshole, I'm going to escalate in a bad way. But listen to me, like when I start talking to conservatives, like we actually share more values than we realize. And that's true. I know it's cliche, but we're so hyped up, we can't see it. And we go to the dark places first. But like, I think I value community, and I think a Republican, or I guess Trump voter now, a conservative would, but how do we value it in different ways? What are the commonalities? And like, is this a process you want to jump into? I'm happy to start.
Well, I don't know that I would agree with the premise that we share a lot of values. I really don't believe that people do. For me, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you had a quiet place and you were enjoying the quiet, and then someone comes along and says, "Hey, this is a really great place here. I hope you enjoy the quiet." And their sound ruins what you have. And so it's obvious they don't value the quiet. And there are quite a few people who don't value it. I don't value quiet. I go out camping and I take my boombox or whatever with me, and I have music blaring, so the quiet's not there. I don't think you can value something you don't experience.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit and twist it a bit. They do value, they're using the music as a good example of campsites. Like they value, or they like that kind of good feeling, that kind of like that the comfort kind of thing. And they think they can get it through blasting music because that's how they feel comfortable. And if I approach them in that same, like you're valuing comfort, not quiet, and quiet is just the method. And so if I can explain how quiet is also comfortable, you might also agree.
Well, if I'm a non-smoker and we're in a room together and you want to smoke, I can't have what I value if you have what you value. The two are incompatible. I can't be in the smoky room and still be in a smoke-free environment. You choose one or the other.
Well, you can value being next to that person and say, this is so maybe not smoke right this second. If they value being next to you, value versus method, I think we're getting a little off track.
Yeah. Well, this is where I run into the problem, though, and I don't know if everyone experiences this, but I'm reminded of the Arlo Guthrie song about Alice's Restaurant, where they're in the courtroom and he brings in his 8x10 glossy pictures and he's a seeing eye dog, and it's like my argument doesn't work because he can't see it. He can't. Right. He doesn't see and can't see what I'm trying to express to him. That's where I say we don't share common values because we don't have common experience. We don't see things the same way. And I think it runs through political divides as well. Right now, we're struggling over mask mandates and, school openings and all these things. And there's a difference in values. That's what's happening. I value having my kid in school more than I do being overly zealous about protecting him or her. The value for me is get him in school, and I'll take the risk of COVID. And other people say, well, no, COVID is very serious. School becomes secondary. We can't experience those same things there. And how can we share our existence with someone with whom we disagree diametrically? I mean, you want to let people do what they value when their values contradict yours. I mean, doesn't it seem like the common thread that goes through all of these things? Talk to an anti-abortionist about abortion rights, and the values are different, and there isn't any compromise. So what you were saying before, Dustin, about being aggressive, that's what both sides do. They get real aggressive. And
in this analogy, you'd be aggressive in your attempts to understand them on some level, even though you're not going to agree on 90% of it. Finding commonality aggressively in order to calm them down so you could see if there is any, if you come at them, I don't agree with you, never will. Well, you never will. It's not going to work. You're
right.
Yes, but if he's like, I know we don't share this thing, but is there some seed of this that we can find some common ground? I don't think people are diametrically opposed. I think you can push them that way. You can definitely make someone a Nazi, but we're all human.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the Star Trek movies and it's Mr. Spock. I started calling Dr. Mr. Spock. Had to make some decisions based on the good of the many outweighing the good of the few. And is there some extent that you can get anyone whose point of view is a little different from yours to think about what is really the good of the many in a situation, and do they support that, or are they just strictly, I don't want anything that's not good for me?
Now, if someone's radicalized and militant, we've switched. Now you're in a deprogramming phase, and I'm not a counselor. I don't want to put forth that effort. But for the non-super radicalized, I don't go out and talk to fundamentalist Christians because I can't even get to step one. But for everybody else, not everybody else is like that. There's lots of conservatives who aren't what you think.
Well, Steve, what you were bringing up, I think, is very, very critical. Is that understanding that the good of the many outweighs the good of the few or the one. That I believe that's true, but I don't think David Koch believes that's true. I don't think he thinks of I think he believes that in a perfect world, the strong prevail and the rest, suffer, outrageous fortune, whatever it might be. I don't believe we share that common idea of the common good. I think
that's probably true, but maybe not everybody that you're trying to negotiate with is as corrupt as he is in their morals.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you would wonder whether or not Mr. Koch is corrupt or just greedy. He's following a set of rules that he knows how to follow and that he believes to be valid. And he's not cheating anybody as far as he's concerned on how you get money.
I'm pretty sure if you're a billionaire, you've cheated somebody.
Yes, probably so. But nonetheless, yes, I know. I'm certainly ranted and raved about him enough myself.
Well, I don't know whether he would define cheating the same way. I mean, our ex-president spoke explicitly about trying to pay as little tax as he possibly could. That's the good thing. Don't, figure out any way you can not to pay tax. Well, wait a minute. Yeah. You're the president of the United States. You're responsible for gathering the taxes, and you're telling people don't pay any more tax.
Yeah, but before Trump, I was told that too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You don't want to. You don't want to.
I wasn't told. I wasn't given the broccoli though. I wasn't told. I think of taxes as investment. Right. Is the phrase we need to start using. Taxes are investment; they're not penalty. Yeah. I wasn't told that. I was told, "Fuck the IRS. Try to pay as little as possible." As a little.
But that's an attitude that is propagated by people who said, well, nobody really likes to, wouldn't you rather have your money than give it to the government? Well, it's hard to say no. Sure, I'd rather have more money than less money. But there's also the common thread, or what should be the understanding of the common good, that says, well, wait a minute, we have to pay for services and I should put forward my fair share. Now, I don't want to pay a lot of taxes and have somebody else pay nothing. I want there to be some fairness in that. But there are other people who say, no, I don't want to pay any taxes at all. I don't agree in this common good thing that you value. And so I think there's what's lacking is that underlying understanding of, we're all in this together, and that it's, in the end, we want to improve everyone's lot in life. Yeah. I don't think we agree to that anymore. And I'm not sure that we ever did. I think
and not to belabor the point, but it's again language of, if you believe in personal investment, right? Yeah, of course. Well, here's the way you can personal invest as a community. Like you reframe it, because they're thinking, you're taking my money. I'm like, no, this is an investment opportunity, just like all the other things you want to do by yourself. Yeah. In a greater good with all those other, like this, the reframing, because we both agree in investment. You want to do it yourself. I want to do it with a group.
Yeah. Well, I don't see the leadership. Now, let's look at two parties here. Let's look at Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell does not want to have a general agree. He does not want to seek an agreement and compromise among all Americans. He wants his side to prevail and basically screw everybody else. That I'm right, you're wrong, I'm going to win, you're going to lose. He's in a position of leadership, and that comes forward from him. And that's an attractive position. That's the cheerleader approach. That's saying we're going to go out and we're going to prevail. And that's easy. It's easy to summon a lot of people to say, okay, we're going to overcome the enemy. And it's a lot harder to do what Joe Biden might be trying to do, which is to say we need to build a better society. We need to build something that's fairer for everyone and make sure we provide for. That's a difficult thing to do. And if you have these two forces at work among your highest level leadership, you're not having two people say, look, we want the best healthcare system in the country. How can we make it work best for everybody? That's not what they're saying. The Republicans are saying, we don't give a shit about making it a good healthcare system. I got my healthcare. Fuck you. And that's what they're saying. So there's no desire to reach a common solution. And without the desire to do it, how do you negotiate?
That's the same thing with maps. There's no desire to reach a common solution.
Yeah.
It's my way or the highway. On both sides are saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, I listen to all that, and I think this is incredibly difficult to deal with. You have people who live in literally a different reality.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, when you have that going on, it's really hard to carry on a discussion with somebody if they don't believe that the reality that you live in is the same one they live in the small ways. Never mind the big ways, just the small ways of doing that. And you know, I wish I've done my share of stopping and talking to somebody and having a, you know, well, look, here's the deal, and what the scientists say, or what, you know, the thinkers or the people who've really spent a lot of time on this will say this right here, and a lot of those people sooner or later turn around and say, well, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
How do you say, well, your belief is wrong? Well, then you really lost them, and they're going to talk to that.
Yeah. I'm getting into the realm of I don't want to make people think like me. I want to find some commonality where I can have solidarity. I don't want to live in a world where it's like, oh, everything's fine if just these people would do it this way. I don't want to think like that. I want to find some way that, like, I know everybody's different. Like, I know this, and there's never going to be 100% consensus, but like, how do I build solidarity to empower myself, fight the big moneyed interests so they don't build properties like that?
Well, it comes down to reality. I mean, to thinking, how do you think in ways that people can agree with, and it will be right, because you know, a lot of people have spent time learning how to do that rather than just simply saying, I'm for this, I'm for that. And, you know, because, you know, science is one of those, I go on about that because that's where people actually think about stuff and come up with an answer. And you know, and you can't, that's one of those things where it's, you know, when Mitch McConnell had polio, you know, I'm sure that his family didn't say, oh, well, we're going to put him in for a vaccine. You know, I mean, hey, he did, and he's got a limp as a consequence of that. And you would think that it would be possible to at least get him to say, well, yes, this is I was saved, my health was saved because of the government providing that vaccine, which it did, and I got it. You know, got both of them at that back, and you know, they didn't argue with us and say you can't do this. They just said, get over here in line, you know, and roll up your sleeves. And that's what happened. So I like to stand with that group of people by and large. You know, that this is going to be, the science moves and changes and moves and changes, but fundamentally, you know, the rules for how it's done. And so, you know, that first and foremost is at least one of the things I'm firmest about. If the science doesn't agree with you, you're wrong. Period. I mean, you know, what else can you do? If I believe that COVID is going to kill me, you know, I'm going to be careful about that. And if the scientists come back and says, well, you know, we were wrong, then you say, okay, fine, thank you very much, and go home.
What about misrepresentation of science? I've noticed this, like following the rise of science, especially in the whole pandemic at large, science stuff. And I noticed there's some science over here, and it always turns out to be true. Now, maybe that's just a coincidence, but the media still hangs on to the older narrative.
We've really gotten into a place where how do we do something about it personally? And one of the ways you deal with it is to figure out how to make that connection. And how do you get the media to pay attention to the science. You know, all the people who should be paying attention to the science, it's the media. And of course, some of the lousiest people putting up lies and you know, just going on at great length. And so is it possible to nail down that group of people, or at least some people, and say, hey, can we rely on you to
that's why I don't listen to corporate media, because they're not looking at the science, they're looking at the ratings.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that's where we've kind of abandoned things. That the thing I think that is missing in the media is there should be folks from One America and Fox News and MSNBC and CNN in the same venue talking to each other. Well, they should be talking to each other, and they should be making their arguments with each other, but it should be not in the sense of we're going to beat you. It's there's this thing out here that we're trying to understand. We're trying to figure out what the best way of dealing with this disease is. What are the ideas that you're going to put forward? And how can we test your hypothesis? The scientific method itself became a standard for discussion that, okay, I can say whatever I want, but I need to prove it by testing and validating my hypothesis. So what we're missing in the environment now is a place where those minds come together. And if you're saying that masks aren't effective, well, prove it. You know, if you say that the vaccine doesn't work, okay, present your evidence. If you say that there was cheating in the ballot in the last election, fine. If that's true, I'm with you. I'm opposed to it, but I can't just take your word for it. Give me some scientific evidence. And we agree up front to come to an agreement based on acceptable, provable, verifiable facts. We have to agree before we get into the discussion that the folks who present the most plausible explanation and the most verifiable part of it, they will win the argument. But we don't agree on that. And we don't agree because of what you're saying, Dustin, is the profit. Nobody likes that kind
of. Honestly, like when you hear a different varying view, how much of it is up to them to convince you versus you to go look into it yourself?
Well, I mean, it's some of each, certainly. Yeah. I mean, you can't just take anything at face value. If I hear a scientific explanation, I'm going to want to get that validated. I mean, that's why you have organizations like the CDC, and that's that there's a place where those folks come together. And I would expect that the real discussion of things like COVID take place in those professional organizations. That's where they argue facts. And I'm sure there's a difference of opinion. Should it be one dose or two? Should we have, how much should a child get? There's a lot of things that they're trying to determine, but they're agreeing to try to make the right thing. They're not saying my opinion is going to prevail over yours. Yeah. They're saying my unveiling of the facts will prevail over yours.
Yeah. And quick public service announcement, and you can go look it up, of 80% of the peer review based data is actually controlled by the pharmaceutical companies, and they don't let the peer review see it. They're really just proofreading it. So peer review doesn't even mean what we think we mean. So when they're the scientists talking about this, you got to look into that. You're like, I'm sorry, it's so saddening, but you can't outright trust it blanketly either. The CDC, it's regulatory capture. The data, the peer reviewers are not actually peer reviewing data.
Yeah.
But the worst is they think they are. It's possible to be a good person in a bad system, and it's a new world. It takes a lot of work.
Well, I always argue with anybody that wants to, argue about the science. I say, fine. Do you believe that gravity is real? You believe gravity is real? Yeah. Well, how do you know that?
God told me.
God told you, or maybe they want to argue that they oppose the idea. Well, we don't believe in gravity. Oh, well, here you go. Go test it right now. here's a building, go jump off of it and see if you can not die. I mean, somewhere along the way, you have to hit people with the facts and say, look, these are the facts. And if they say, no, they're not, then you can have a discussion. But if you say, these are the facts, and they go, yeah, who gives a damn? You're out of luck. I mean, they're not going to do anything about that. But, because I'm thinking about, I've got some people in my family that I don't carry on and argue with. They're not going to argue with me about it. And they're, good church Christers. Hey, yeah, buddy. And they're very nice people. And, yeah, I mean, I just don't go see them. That's where it's at. I hate that, but that's what, that's where we get to.
I try to form some other relationship having nothing to do with our fundamental disagreement. That I may not agree with my nephew about this building project he's got, but when I see him, I'm going to talk about his kids and how they're doing. I'm going to avoid focusing on the thing we disagree upon and try to focus on the things we have. Dustin, to your point, is where things that you can agree upon, that it's not an attempt to compromise on how I feel about development. It's an attempt to say, look, I don't have to hate you to disagree with you.
It's a connection, because we all love jumping into arguments with people who hate us and who disagree with us at every single turn and be jerks about it. We love that. No, we don't.
Well, that's why in reference to what I was talking about in the beginning about what do I do about tearing this field apart down at the end of my street, I find it difficult to go meet with people who are blind to my values and discuss with them something that, their reaction to me is that the last mayor of St. Matthews referred to me as a troublemaker because I was trying to bring up the issue of the place on Massey Avenue. He said, oh, he's just a troublemaker. Well, yeah. I guess I am a troublemaker because I don't like to sit by and just, I know I'm going to lose. Okay, I'm going to lose, but I'm going to state what I believe. I'm going to put it out there. And
what would be for the three of you, what would be the positive approach to this of not coming in and saying this is bad, for this development in particular? What would be going around to your community and giving them an even better idea and even more? How do you frame that as a more positive thing to do something different rather than this condo? Because yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking of when I mentioned to Steve the park down the street from him. I think that, Wendy Hills did the right thing. And so that was.
Oh, yeah. Seneca's too far away. Wouldn't you love this nice park next to your house?
Right.
Yeah. Who owns the land now? Do you know? Has your developer nephew's company?
This is in the trust. It was a family that had been here. The quick answer is I really don't know, but what I have heard people talking about is this is now in a trust. There was a family that owned it. There have been attempts to. At one time, somebody wanted to build a grocery store there, and it's in an awkward position for that. The railroad track there makes it kind of an awkward place, and so it wasn't done for that and for another reason. So it is for sale now, which it has not been for the last 50 years. It wasn't for sale. They took it off the market.
So it hasn't been sold, but the developers want to buy it, and they're requesting approval of it before.
That's where it is. And in order to get the approval, they have to get the zoning. So to win the battle, I have to beat the zoning.
Yeah.
Not to zone this as multifamily.
This photo that's behind me, I took a couple of springs ago when I was out for a walk on the 2 mile walking trail in Anchorage. And I think the story behind this land and its development ties back to the Papa John Corporation. I forget John, what his last name is, the guy. Yeah. That it was his actions that created this park. Now he lives in Anchorage, so that was, nice thing for him to have in his community. But there was an idea of some big money backing coming in to create some green space to make this a nicer community. I'm wondering if there's any way for St. Matthew's money to come in to make this a nicer green space for the community.
Yeah. You find out how much the developer's how much money they're gonna get for it if it's not sold already. And then you match that money, but you have a secret weapon, good PR.
Yeah.
You can give them good PR.
You're talking about you can give the sellers.
The sellers.
Yeah. Agree.
Guilt and shame, baby.
Well, I'll put up as much of a fight as I can. I mean, quite honestly, it gets fatiguing. Maybe it's just a product of age, but you think about all the things involved in it. It's if it became a community project with lots of support, I'd gladly throw my effort into it. But if I have to lead the charge,
well, how can we help you?
Well, you helped me today by just listening and talking. It's I
can call the developer.
Well, I don't think I'm not going to dissuade
the seller. I'm sorry, the seller.
The seller, perhaps. Yeah. That may be it. And I want to talk to the mayor as well, and try to put the heat on them. What I want to know is what can they do to stop it. And that's predicated upon the fact that I assume they may want to stop it. And that's not necessarily a warranted assumption there that they indeed want to stop it. They might want to do this. If they want to do it, I doubt there's anything anybody can do, but I'll take that to heart. We're going to have a meeting on Tuesday. There's already some social media traffic about this. And I'm going to make another video call focused on this on this field. I'd appreciate Paul help me with some editing on my text for this. I'd like to make about a 1-minute public service announcement on this project and try to put it out as a social media meme and get as many people in St. Matthew's as I can to at least. The funny thing is, everybody I've spoken to about this, it was first they'd heard of it. They hadn't been aware of it. So that's another thing developers do, is they try to get in and have all their ducks lined up before the PR comes out. So you may not like it, but we already got the cards have been dealt, and I got 4 aces in my hand. So
Yeah, and don't underestimate flyers and door knocking in your community. Of like, here's a link to my video. It's written on a piece of paper. Just like in getting people elected, it does. It's work. I know. Work.
Yeah. Well, another project to work on.